Hey, let's talk some Georgia football here at the Voice of College Football. It's the two-time defending champions, and there's quite a few people that seem to think that they've got a chance of three-peating. If you look at the latest coaches and AP polls, there is some consensus out there for Georgia's direction and Kirby Smart. We got Anthony Dasher here to talk of Georgia football. Catch Anthony's work at Rivals Platform for Georgia Athletics. It's UGAsports.com. Anthony, how you doing today?
Hey, doing great.
Excellent. Folks, you can leave your comments and questions there in the live chat. We will get to them. This should be no surprise. I saw today that all Georgia home games are sellouts. And not only are they sellouts, people are starting to post ridiculous money totals, prices for what people would have to give up to try to snatch one away from someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that comes as no surprise. In fact, it's quite a long streak that Georgia has going right now as far as consecutive sellouts go. Now, off the top of my head, I can't tell you what that is, but I just know that Georgia football tickets are definitely a hot commodity, and they have been for a while now.
Yeah, and then as I mentioned off the top, with the AP poll and the coaches poll, both number one, not much dissension in regards to anybody thinking that anybody else should be ranked number one at this point. Bama got a couple votes here, Michigan a couple votes there, Ohio State one or two votes there, and that was pretty much it. And those seem to be the only teams that most people are giving any kind of chance. But you talk about a consensus, this is about as close as it gets.
It is. I mean, everywhere you look, if you believe all the folks, Georgia has a very good chance of or at least has an opportunity anyway to put themselves in position for the three-peat, which I'm sure folks know. And if you haven't, it hasn't happened since the mid-30s with Minnesota. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the schedule obviously sets up. Turns out a little better than what it was going to originally. Last year this time Georgia was supposed to play Oklahoma week 2 of the season in Norman, but with the Sooners coming into the SEC, that game was taken away, and Georgia had to scramble to find a game, and they looked all over. They tried to find another FBS team, but that close to the season starting, from last year was just nobody available. They had to settle for Ball State, which I know Georgia has caught a lot of slack for that, but really not a lot they could have done last year under the circumstances. So they were told by the league that, hey, you guys have to drop Oklahoma. Tennessee, the same thing. Tennessee was supposed to play Oklahoma, I believe it was the following year, and Tennessee had to find a new opponent for 24. So just an unlucky situation as far as that's concerned.
Yeah, and then from a crossover standpoint in the SEC, they always face Auburn. And by looking at the recruiting battles going on right now, Hugh Freeze may be a factor in the SEC, but obviously that has nothing to do with 2023. Ole Miss is the rotational opponent that comes up for a final time in this SEC scheduling system that we've been used to since 1992. So two decent teams from the Western Division, two good teams with some talent, but not necessarily the heavy hitters on that side, whether that be Alabama, LSU, or you could even throw, in a sense, from a talent standpoint, Texas A&M into that mix. So, yeah, nobody's looking at anybody in particular as being Georgia's equal or having anything beyond a puncher's chance. I guess that team would be Tennessee first and foremost.
Yeah, Tennessee. I mean, next to last game of the season, the Vols, I'm sure, are going to have another very good team this year. Offensively, they're going to be, I think, one of the better teams in the conference. That game's going to be in Knoxville. If it's a night game, and I've been to many night games at Neyland Stadium, that's about as good as an atmosphere as you're going to see. So you never know. So, I mean, that's one I think that most people figure if Georgia's going to drop a game, they probably got a best chance of doing it in that one.
Folks, want to let you all know that we will continue to churn out SEC football content. We're either even going to be providing more than we have in the past, which is somewhat inconceivable, but more SEC football content. But we're not going to have this particular Georgia channel going forward. So in terms of Voice of College Football content, that's moving over to our new SEC channel that we just launched. So the The link for that is in the description section of the video here. So grab the link, check out what we've got provided there. We've already covered basically every team in the SEC, and we just launched last week. So plenty of good content there. And of course, get on over to Rivals and catch Anthony's work at ugasports.com. All right. Let's see, we're about halfway through camp. In regards to positional battles, what has left to be determined? What are some of the more interesting position battles?
Well, probably I'll start on the offense. Left tackle probably is still not, been decided yet. I mean, that battle was between, Ernest Green and Austin Blask. I expect Ernest, who's a redshirt freshman, not played in the game yet, will probably get that nod, but Austin has been playing very well. And of course, quarterback. I think everybody expects it's going to be Carson Beck, but Coach Smart has not made that official yet, and I'm not sure he will make it official until they actually step on the field for that first game against Tennessee Martin. All three quarterbacks have been, yesterday I'm told, have been playing very well, making smart decisions, showing that consistency that Coach wants to see, and so that's probably the main one. But there are some other spots too. On the defensive side, there's that cornerback spot opposite Kamari Laster. That's yet to be decided. A lot of candidates just got to find the right guy. Probably think it's going to wind up being sophomore Dalen Everett. But you've got Nyland Green, you've got freshman A.J. Harris, freshman Daniel Harris have looked, very well. But overall, it's a team, again, that's got a lot of experience, coming back. Guys who played a lot of football last year. There's just really not a lot of spots, in my opinion anyway, starting spots anyway, they're really going to be up for grabs.
In terms of Dominic Levet and Ra Thomas, of course, the big wide receiver transfers in from Missouri and Mississippi State. Yep. Do those guys seem to be having good camps?
No doubt, especially Dominic. And Dominic has had seems like from the day he stepped on campus back in January, we started hearing some great things about him. And every player you talk about his explosiveness, his speed. And I think he's going to make a very good combo with Ladd McConkey. Marcus Roseby, Jake Saint is actually playing ahead of Ra Thomas right now with that Zeke position receiver. Although Ra again is going to get a lot of playing time in the rotation. Arian Smith, who had had a great game against Ohio State in the Chick-fil-A bar, the long touchdown catch, he's back. Dylan Bell, sophomore, had a very good freshman year last season. Going to be an integral partner, of course, like Brock Bowers. I mean, that's makes for as good a receiving core, I think, on paper as Coach Smart has had since he's been in Athens. So they feel good about the skilled players they've got on this team this year. They just want to make sure whoever that quarterback is going to be consistent and not do things to beat himself.
Anthony, are there any true freshmen that you expect on either side of the ball to make any kind of impact?
Yeah, I think in the secondary, Jonell Aguirre has been seeing a lot of time at Star. I'm not saying he's going to start, but I think you'll see him get a lot of playing time, similar to what we saw last year with Malachi Starks. But up front, I think defensive tackle freshman Jordan Hall has been very impressive. We saw him back in the G-Day game, really flash, made some explosive plays. Got in the backfield a little bit. He's had a great fall camp. So that would be another name. They don't have anybody that's going to, step in and do the things that Jalen Carter did for this defense last year. But they feel very good about the defensive line depth, and Jordan is one of those, young men they think can play a big role. But otherwise, they've got some freshman wide receivers, Tyler Williams, Anthony Evans, and Zede Haynes. I think will get some playing time. Lawson Lucky is a freshman tight end who had a very good spring. He's hurt right now. He's going to be out for about a month. But once he gets back, I think you'll see him play some. And there's a couple of linebackers, Raylan Wells, inside linebackers, kind of high percentages need, but he'll be back. And they've got a trio of outside linebackers and Gabe Harris, Sam Pemba, among them who are going to be, I think, very good players. Damon Wilson is another one that's going to, I think, have very good years before it's all said and done.
And talking about first-year players for 2023, I know recruiting obviously dies down in terms of everybody's hard at work. Kirby Smart, famously known for never stopping on the recruiting path. But in terms of what we see, in terms of commits, players start to get more focused on their own high school practices and getting into the season. But is there anything out there in regards to any commitment dates or any pursuits that we should be keeping an eye out for?
Not immediately, I don't believe. Georgia has gotten most of the kids they've been after. They have lost out on a few in the past weeks, just because they can't get everybody. But they do expect to sign, I think, around 30 kids once that early December, date rolls around. But right now, there's nothing. I don't believe it's immediate. It's not going to happen, this week or next.
So how often do you get to be able to see practice? And it's usually in what, 10 or 15 minute spurts?
Yeah, I
Kind
think.
of chuckled when I said that.
Since camp started, we've seen practice twice, about 10, 12 minutes, I think, on Tuesdays since practice has started. So we don't get to see much at all. And what we do see is mostly stretching and some basic drills.
And
No
then
photos, no video.
then you get a couple rounds with selected players and coaches, right?
Yeah,
Maybe
they
once a
determined who we
week.
talked to. We talked to we got to talk to the coordinators a week ago, and we have typically get 2 players on Tuesday, 2 players on Thursday, and that's really generally about it.
Do these guys, now that they've backed it up with another national championship after they won the first one and had the target, did they seem phased at all, or how do they approach or
No,
seem to be approaching the bullseye?
yeah, I think everybody's very level-headed, about things. These guys get asked, all the time about the three-peat, and can they do it, and that kind of thing. But granted, they're trained very well in what to say, but I think all those guys, realize that what happened in the previous 2 years doesn't mean a thing, and the way they practice, as much effort they put in, and how hard they go. Uh, Complacency is something that Coach Mark does not allow to set in, and if Georgia doesn't get it done this year and win it all, it'll just be because they got beat. I don't think it will be because the team, let it get in its head or became complacent, that sort of thing. Because just the way they practice, the way they go about the business on a daily basis, pretty much eliminates all that from happening, in my opinion.
Now, as you know, Anthony, some of the talk last offseason concerning what happened in the playoffs and in the championship game was that there was no John Mechie in the championship game, and then Jamison Williams got knocked out late in the first half, I think.
Yeah.
And that might have been a different story had those two guys been on the field. Then this last college football playoff, Ohio State's got a double-digit lead. Marvin Harrison gets knocked out of the game. If they follow through with a personal foul, Ohio State's got the ball at the 2-yard line, and maybe they punch it across for a 3-score lead. And just that tenuous line of, not that they got lucky, I would in no way say that, but I get this kind of conversation almost every day. Again, last offseason it was Bama. This offseason it's Ohio State, in regards to them being a little bit fortunate to get that job done.
Well, Georgia didn't have Nolan Smith last year either, and Nolan Smith was might have been a first-round pick at outside linebacker. Didn't have him for half the season last year. Maybe Nolan, gets a couple of sacks, in that game last year. It caused the difference. Same thing the year before. Georgia had players out in that contest, and Darnell Washington was banged up. I mean, if you want to be really, dive in real deeply, go back and look at some of the film on some of the holding calls that weren't called. I mean, that's football. I mean, things like that happen, and people are always going to find reasons why this team should have done that, shouldn't have done that. But especially one last year with Harrison, which just pretty much depends on which side of the fence you want to fall on that. But the fact that Georgia had players missing too, missing Nolan Smith in that ball game was huge for Georgia, not having him. So if you want to throw Marvin Harrison in the call, I'll throw not having Nolan Smith out there as being just as big of a deal.
I actually saw a headline just here in the last couple of days about Nolan Smith and him still trying to recover for. He's with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, he hurt his shoulder a little bit last night. He's fine. In fact, he's been playing very well. He got dinged up yesterday. I'm not sure how serious it is, but he was a forced outside linebacker for Georgia for 2 seasons, and was really one of the best they've had that position in several years.
Yeah. I don't even know how to approach this next question, just in regards to, 42 years. waiting for a national championship. So some of us, like you and myself, we can relate to 42 years because we were around for the whole time. Some people
Sure.
can't that are listening, but 42 years is a long time. And not that they didn't have an extremely good football program. You know, they had their 7-5, 8-4 kind of stretches there, especially in the 90s. But under Mark Richt, they certainly had a couple teams that probably were as good as anybody in the country. And just to be a top 10 program for 40 years, but not to get it done. And now to get it done, um, I got to think that people are running into each other in the state of Georgia on a daily basis, just kind of just throwing up their hands saying, wow, this is amazing. You know, what's happened here in the last couple of years.
Well, no doubt for Georgia fans, this is the best of times. I mean, there's no question, about that. You know, back before they won, you always see people, reminiscing. Man, back in my day, Georgia, da 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 da, did this and that, and 1980, we get brought up a lot. People who were around at that point in time would reminisce and want to talk about how great a feeling that was. And now here they are sitting at, 2 straight titles and, opportunity perhaps to win a third. And again, that's why they brought in Kirby Smart. I mean, the program was doing very well. 2012, I'll go back to that SEC championship game against Alabama. Goes down to the last play of the ball game. Georgia's down driving and doesn't get it done at the very end. Georgia wins that. I'm probably thinking there's a very good chance they beat Notre Dame. Pretty similar to what Alabama did. In the championship. A few weeks. From there. But no, it's been a program that's gotten close. A bunch of times. Finishing the top 5 of the polls at the end of the season, but just couldn't take that next step. And that's why Coach Smart was brought in, and he certainly, made that move pay off for him.
I'm certainly one to have done this in regards to, kind of go through different formats of the playoffs and what would have happened and what it would have looked like in previous seasons. But I don't know that I necessarily have gone through a 4-team playoff, but I got to think they would have made one under Richt in 2002, 2005, 2007.
Those are very good teams.
Those 3 would have made a Final Four and would have been playing for a national championship in addition to 2012.
Yeah, no doubt. If the playoffs had been around those seasons, I'm pretty confident to say that Georgia would have been in that grouping in those years. And, if they had the playoffs in, Georgia goes and wins one of those, who knows? Coach Richt may, I won't say will still be here, but he would have lasted maybe a little longer than what he did. He may have gotten the benefit, of the doubt. But Coach Smart was the one that they had their eyes on, and people had been predicted for years. And once the move was made, Kirby was going to be the guy they brought over, and that's what happened. And Georgia had to do something too, because he interviewed at Auburn. He was very interested in the South Carolina job. Who knows where those programs may be right now if they got Coach Smart before Georgia did.
South Carolina is an interesting situation over there with Shane Beamer. He seems to be the right fit for that job. He's doing a nice job recruiting. And, of course, they've built on their seasons since he started. But it's kind of hard to imagine them ever being a major factor. But at the same time, I look at their football history and where they're located and how rabid the fan base is, and that they have recruits all through that, tri-state area that they should be recruiting. And I would just expect them to be a much better program through the years than they've been. So I don't want to call them a sleeping giant, but there's certainly potential there.
No doubt. And they have done a very good job of late recruiting. They've got just got a 5-star kid this last week or so. Stewart, I think is his name, defensive lineman. If my memory serves correct. They have been doing a lot better job.
That is the last name.
Recruiting, and Coach Beamer, who was at Georgia, was at Oklahoma. He's doing a lot of the same things, taking some of the same philosophies that Coach Smart, has done at UGA. You see a lot of similarities in the way they carry on their practices now. So, for some of these programs like Carolina, history is a tough thing to overcome sometimes. You really got to, really do things not necessarily different, but you've got to really be really focused on what you're trying to do. And it all starts with recruiting, getting the best kids you can. And it does appear they are starting to do that at South Carolina.
And it's got to be that Billy Napier is getting a few people's attention, maybe.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Florida, was previous 2 years have not done a good job at all recruiting, but this season, this current 2023 class is very strong. I mean, you're seeing Florida in contention for guys that they weren't getting sniffs from, previously. So there's just too much talent in the state of Florida for the Gators not to ultimately, I think, get it done. I think with Tennessee, with that program, really, building as well, Florida, Georgia. It's going to be fun to watch in SEC East, I think, for years to come.
Folks, I want to remind everyone that we've got a new SEC channel that we've launched about a week ago, and all the Georgia and the SEC content is moving over there. So anything here that you're watching on the Georgia channel here at the Voice of College Football, that's headed to our new SEC channel. So just jump down to the description section. The link's right there, and you can grab it right there. Also, check out Anthony's work. Again, it's UGAsports.com on Rivals. Let's see, Anthony, not that you didn't start hard at work here several weeks ago, but 2 more weeks and then it's full throttle until January.
No doubt. Well, anymore in college football, especially at Georgia, there's no off weeks to begin with anyway. But yeah, it's you can kind of get a sense now that the season's just 2 weeks away, and once that gets rocking and rolling, it's full steam ahead.
Okay, Anthony, we appreciate you being here.
Sure.
Always appreciate you showing up to break down the dogs and bring us the latest.
And we'll do it again.
All right. That sounds good.
Yep.
Have a good day.
Yep.
All right. Again, that was Anthony Dasher. Does a great job. We always appreciate him stopping by. He brings us Georgia football content, and you can see more from Anthony on our SEC channel. And again, anything that is Voice of College Football related here on this Georgia channel, going to the new SEC channel. The link is in the description section of the video here. The link is in the description section to the SEC channel and the Big 12 channel that we just launched here about a week ago as well. Head on over there, get locked in. We've already posted tons of videos on LSU, South Carolina, Alabama, Auburn, Ole Miss, Florida, Georgia, and Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Arkansas. We are all over it. We want you not to be able to miss anything. So again, on the SEC channel description section, grab the link right there. And we will see you all for tonight's big show. College football preseason spectacular of sorts. We're going to highlight all of our post-game shows here at the Voice of College Football over on the national channel tonight at 10 o'clock Eastern time. So we hope to see you there. Have a good rest of your Friday.